when he goes into the meeting and announces the same thing, nobody just goes into hysterics or like even take like, well, okay, so all right then, Jesus. Like,
yeah.
Like,
like,
is this the infamous "we're bigger than Jesus"? Or
no.
This is after that fiasco.
Yeah, that was in 66. This is 2 years later.
and you know exactly how that went down. So when you go bigger than Jesus, it sounds like you're a novice again and you don't know the story. Because they were never bigger than Jesus. Like he was sorry, he didn't mean this lousy thing, this thing that just can't, like it doesn't mean whatever I said or the way it was taken or whatever.
Have some tea.
So he announces this to the business and the band and the family.
But like Peter Brown's there and stuff like that.
Yeah,
they're sitting in like, they're in
Peter
the Apple
Brown,
offices.
The head of who was Peter Brown?
Is it's like, what is Peter's job at Apple? Is he a solicitor? Is he a lawyer?
He worked at NEMS.
He was a Brian guy,
right,
no doubt.
Came through with Brian, and so after Brian did, he's one of the guys. So he still was someone who had looked after their affairs since 62, 63. He was part of that group. I don't know, because he wrote a book that's gotten a little that doesn't have a ton of credibility, but because people think
I've read it.
Yeah, I read it. It was like The Love You Make or something. I think.
Yeah, something like that.
Right?
Right?
And it tells the Beatles. It was a little dishy. So a lot of people kind of beat up that book a little, but it was certainly the first time I read a lot of the stories that have since, evolved into more probably closer to the truth. But
true.
Yeah. So this was the beginning of the John and Yoko relationship, and certainly publicly, because that was kind of where this was leading. It's always been.
They go someplace, right? Publicly, they go to
the premiere. They go to the premiere of trying to remember.
Hey Jude.
No, that's what. See, that was the other thing that I thought was interesting. Right? Hey Jude doesn't happen until like August, September. Right, so when they do the recording and the David Frost video and at Twickenham, right, which
is also pre Rock and Roll Circus because they're already together by
Rock and Roll Circus in December. So the timeline that I've been saying. So here we know that John met Yoko in probably 66 or early 67, right,
at the Dunbar Gallery,
right, and John almost jokes about her with what's his wife's name? Damn it! I want to say Linda. It's not
Cynthia.
Cynthia, thank you.
That she's like she's this weirdo and she's like she's crazy and there's that whole thing that goes on where she came on to Paul first too.
Yeah.
Because he was the single one, and so she came on to Paul first. And so that's always kind of cemented her legacy as the, a grifter, an opportunist, right?
But so right, and then he's off. They're doing the Magical Mystery Tour, and they go off to India. Like she's not part of any of this, but when she comes back,
but she's writing all those letters to John in India, and John flat says like they're at the ashram, and he takes a bungalow or whatever, like apart from Cynthia, and says to her, I need to be able to meditate and blah, 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 blah. And she was thinking that this, according to Cynthia in her biography, she's trying to this will be something that will get our marriage together. Famously, when they go to see the Maharishi the very, very first time, which is just like in England, in Bangor, Bognor, wherever, Bognor, they end up going to the train station, and Cynthia misses the train.
Well, she gets separated in the crowd, so she
gets separated. She misses the train, and like John, off they go, and she's recounted that and said that that was just a metaphor for her whole relationship with John, that she couldn't make it, and when but that's like an early thing where Patty Harrison has kind of, got involved in it, and she ends up taking George. George goes to see the Maharishi somewhere, and then there's like this weekend retreat happening.
It's in London. It's in London where he's
okay. So and they end up going there.
And they go, hey, and he's like, hey, come with me. Then
the Maharishi is like, come to India because you guys should come.
No, that's when he invites them to Bognor, and then they do the Bognor thing. Then at Bognor, it's like, let's go, because remember, Brian dies while they're in Bognor, so they cut that short.
Right. Everybody was shocked and stunned. I'll tell you that. That's for sure.
I'm stunned.
So then they go, and so that's where John has kind of met up with Yoko again, maybe at the gallery, that kind of like somewhere, I thought. And he's just like, and Yoko keeps like delivering presents to him. She gives him a little book. She sends him postcards all the time. She keeps up this writing sort of thing, which is something that would, I could see where that.
But also, you could imagine though, it's like she is a starving artist, and and John's a patron of the arts, and like if you just buy one of my things or whatever, like you would milk a rich rock star to try. Like I'm what's interesting is I can't believe there's not other people in that circle that she isn't also sort of hitting up for an endowment.
I've never heard that she did though. Like no one's ever dropped that Yoko has hit them up, you know, and she did have her time prior to that with, the John Cage, group, so she had some like real credibility, she wasn't Warhol, but
that's why she, when they come to New York, it's her world that she brings him into, but that's right. But so like this is the thing is then we know the big, right? There's John taking her to, whatever that premiere was. I think it was a play or something. And it was like the first public thing, which happens in like late May or June. Like, so he comes back from India, and then Cynthia apparently goes on to, like, with her mother and Julian go on like a vacation for like 2 weeks and Magic Alex.
And Magic Alex.
And he hits on her, right? Yeah. And
right. I guess like there is some sort of, they have a tryst. There's like, I think no one denies that.
Yeah, she denies it, but this is the thing this I thought was interesting. So the hotel they stay out in Italy, she later marries like the son who ran the hotel of the family that owned the hotel.
At the very hotel that they stayed at?
Yes.
That's good stuff. I didn't know that.
So that's
no kidding. That's funny.
But at the same time, who knows, right? I think, right, and that's the trip she comes back from, and Yoko is there. And
Yoko is there in the house, right?
Yeah, and that's also, she tells
Tom like sends for, like, it gets, Pete's staying with him. Pete's like hanging out at the house. He's I fancy having Yoko over.
You tell the story. She's like, oh, John's telling me, oh, I can't wait to can't wait to see you. I've missed you. Come on back or whatever. And when she comes back, there's Yoko in the house. You know what I mean? It's just a sort of a weird disconnect. I mean, you only could imagine the level of entitlement.
But I thought just beforehand too, like on some acid bender, that Cynthia, I think, may have dropped acid again that night and tried it again, and like they had some long thing where John completely purges himself and just like, when I was on the road.
I thought that was a drunken confession on the plane coming back from India. Or it was a flight,
which would have been just beforehand.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
And I think that was part of like she needed to go off, but she, I
think it was all part of that, right?
And her attitude was like, you don't split up. We have a kid. We're going to figure this out. And and John's just kind of like, next, and he's
right.
But I think he also promises that he'd never do it again, and blah blah blah. And then
I don't know any of that. I never heard that John makes any kind of promises to her.
But I'm saying it was part of the whole. I'm going to tell you, like, he in great detail he talks about like all his
meanwhile, he's like writing postcards to Yoko too.
Exactly.
Like it, whatever. And
so you don't know if he's bullshitting or covering himself. But this is also someone who, in a matter of days, is also saying he's Jesus Christ. So you know what I mean? He is not a college. But so the other interesting fact is, so on Apple, one of the first acts, and I actually don't know if they put out anything, but there's a band called Grapefruit, right? And John names the band in January of 1968 after Yoko's book that he just got called Grapefruit. So this is January of 68. This is before they go to India. This is, it just kind of, there's definitely a gray of like they didn't consummate it till that night in May when they drop out. There's a little bit of bullshit going around. And there's the housekeeper says that she's seen her, plenty of times. Like, and apparently that was the first time she ever went to the house. There's a lot of contradictions. I thought that was pretty, but the most interesting thing I still find is that if it started that day, and he's out in the public seeing like when he's still married and there's a big. There's a lot of press about the fact that John is, with his, Asian, mistress while he's married and he's a kid and there's all that. But so she's not with him every moment really until the White Album sessions get pretty serious. Like, it's not even like, Hey Jude. It's they're doing more of the album. So that
she doesn't show up on David Frost.
Exactly. And so, but if you think about it, so that's like August, September. So even when you're seeing January or late December Get Back sessions, it's a very new thing. It where Paul's talking about like this seems a little different, like whatever, but it's only like 4 months of they're never apart. It's because so you can imagine it. They're thinking it could end at any moment. Like this is someone they've known for years and years, and like his flings or whatever. So it's really interesting.
There is that though, right? Like Paul goes over so that's interesting. So because they play Hey Jude, right, on David Frost. So
it's faked, right? They're actually
right. That's not the point, though. The point is, Paul has already gone over to Cynthia's house.
Oh yeah.
And he on his way there, he kind of comes up with this Hey Jules, song, in his head that he fleshes out in Hey Jude. But he goes over and makes a joke about well, how about you and I then, Sin? Because John has already
brings a rose,
right. Brings her a flower, brings her a rose, and goes over to and she has said no matter what, you say about everybody gives Paul a hard time and stuff like that, but Paul was the only one who came over and offered any kind of sort of shoulder cry on.
But, also, I mean, but at the same time, remember Paul is also kind of so he rooms with John in New York, right? That's kind of the last time they ever stay together, right? They're staying at someone's apartment together, they travel together, and it's probably the last time they do that. Right, coming back from the New York trip in May.
I guess that's true.
And the Yoko thing happens, right? And he and the Linda thing is sort of happening at that time, but that gets serious later. A couple months. It's like he's kind of lost his real partner. So there's kind of that, and so the Cynthia thing is kind of like
it's funny because he marries Linda soon thereafter, and then John 2 weeks later gets married, and they write the Ballad of John and Yoko. So all this stuff is happening in a really short amount of time.
It is pretty amazing. That's why you almost think, but the Yoko thing is a long time in Beatle time. You know what I mean?
That's potentially 2 hit albums.
Yeah. So
you're right.
Anyway,
right.
That's
more. I mean, White Album. Let It Be, and Abbey Road. Of course, she's still.
So arguably they do make 3 albums in a matter of 4 months.
I want to know, was there any, getting back to John's announcement, is there any fallout? Does this get?
Yeah, that's. I just think.
Is there a press release? Does it get out to the media?
No. I don't think so.
It's funny. I never have read anything about how that just kind of goes away. You know, do they like all get together the next time and they're like, so are you Jesus Christ today? Or, you know, like,
should we call you John still, or Christ, or Jesus, or Mr. Christ?